Welcome to the African History Network show. It is Sunday, September 11th, 2022, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. We're broadcasting right here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF here in Detroit, and on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. Well, the whole world was shaken. And the whole world has been talking about Queen Elizabeth II. It took place Thursday, September 8th, 2022. We got the news late morning, I guess it was. And there's been a ton of media coverage, a ton of news articles written about the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. And there's a lot of coverage and fascination with the royal family, okay, or what some people call the royal family. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, and we discussed this, so I'm going to share a segment of that with you. But after the initial stories about Queen Elizabeth II passing away at the age of 96 and having served 70 years on the throne as the monarch of Britain, and after news stories of her death dominated media in America and around the world, stories dealing with the brutal history of British colonialism started to be told. Now, on Thursday, there was not a whole lot of stories about that. Some of them started creeping in Thursday, but we started seeing more coverage of this on Friday, the day after she passed away. Okay. We know that on September 8th, there was a tweet from Professor Uju Anya of Carnegie Mellon University, who was no fan, had no love for Queen Elizabeth II. And Professor Uju Anya was born in Nigeria. She moved to the U.S. when she was 10 years old. She was born in Nigeria, and she had family members who were killed during the Nigerian Civil War, and she had family members who were killed, and she has no love for Queen Elizabeth II. We saw discourse around that. We saw Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, who posted on social media criticizing Professor Uju Anya, and there's a whole backlash behind that. And we've seen numerous stories, especially Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We've seen numerous stories dealing with the history of colonialism, the brutal history of colonialism in Great Britain, and the fact that Great Britain 100 years ago colonized between 1/5 and some sources say 25% of the world population, and how they got the wealth that you saw distributed in the newsreels that they've been showing on social media. Okay, and the newsreels they've been showing in the media, and the gold carriage, and all of this. Where did this wealth come from? Queen Elizabeth II had a net worth of $500 million when she passed away. The royal monarchy is worth $28 billion. Okay, where did this money come from? So while I was on the air on Friday, I saw the story from the New York Times. In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire. Now we're seeing also stories about Caribbean nations wanted to separate from the Commonwealth, wanted to declare themselves a republic and separate from the Commonwealth as well. We see an increase or a renewed talk regarding Caribbean nations getting reparations. Today on MSNBC, I saw, I think it was on Yasmin Vesuvian show. They were in Kingston, Jamaica. They interviewed the brother who's the head of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. They also interviewed a brother who's a Rastafarian. We know the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, started in Jamaica in 1914, founded by Marcus Garvey. And they're talking, and they have no love for Queen Elizabeth II. We know Jamaica was a colony of Great Britain. Okay, and it's still part of that. It's part of the Commonwealth. And Jamaica was hijacked from the Spanish by the British in 1655 when the when the British go to war with Spain. Okay, and they're fighting over these different territories, and they get Jamaica from Spain in 1655, because we know it was in 1494 that Christopher Columbus conquered Jamaica for the Spanish crown, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. So we're starting to see more conversations, more news stories, more articles, more cable news stories about the history of Great Britain, slavery, colonialism, and the brutality they inflicted on these African and Caribbean nations and India, Asian nations, etc. So we're going to talk about that on today's show. And then also we'll give you class number 1 of my new 8-week online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, started up Saturday, September 10th. You can still register for this 8-week online history class. It's going to blow your mind. And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch it anytime. Visit our website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for it there. As soon as you register, you can watch Saturday's class, the class we just did Saturday. Next class is going to be Thursday. It'll be Thursday, September 15th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so we're going to get through. We have a ton of information to get through on today's show. On the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Network.com. If we look briefly here, we're going to one here in just a second, Giovanni, from Roland Martin Unfiltered. But there was a really good article from the New York Times, September 9th. In Africa, the Queen leads a debate about the legacy of British slavery. And I want to pull this one up here. It talks about there's a fairy tale around Queen Elizabeth II. Well, she was a princess. There's a fairy tale around her becoming queen, and she was on a trip to Kenya in 1952, before the Mau Mau Rebellion begins, which is 1952 to 1956. But she's on a trip to Kenya, and she gets word that her father dies, and she's going to become queen. Okay. And one of the things this article talks about is that the crackdown on the Kenyans, okay, took place just a few months after Queen Elizabeth, after she became Queen Elizabeth II. Okay. Let me pull this article up here. In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire. In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire. We'll continue this on the other side of the break to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep in a few minutes. This being the 21st anniversary of 9/11 as well, and the attack on the Twin Towers. There's been a lot more coverage dealing with the death of Queen Elizabeth II also. Okay, so right before the break, I was talking about this piece here from the New York Times. Okay, and this came out, I saw it while I was on the air on a Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. It came out probably about a couple of hours before on the air Friday. And the name of this article is In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire. In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire. Now, this picture here that they're showing, this is from, this is Mau Mau fighters, the Mau Mau Rebellion in 1952 in Kenya. And Kenya was a British colony at the time. An anti-colonial rebellion was suppressed shortly after Queen Elizabeth II ascended to the British throne. Okay, and they have these Africans in internment camps. Some sources say there were 150,000 of these Kenyans in internment camps, but overall there's something like 0.5 million that were either in internment camps or like confined to their homes. Very little movement. They have something called a movement pass. A movement pass, which is like travel papers or a travel pass during slavery. Okay, this is what these Europeans did. Now, in this article, it says it was while a young Elizabeth was on an official tour of Kenya in 1952 that she learned of her father's death and that she would become queen. The clampdown on Kenyans, which began just months after she ascended to the throne as queen, led to the establishment of a vast system of detention camps and the torture, rape, castration, and killing of tens of thousands of people. The torture, rape, castration, and killing of tens of thousands of people. They castrated African men, Kenyan men who were members of the Mau Mau Rebellion or suspected members. They raped African women. They also raped African men as well. Okay, this is under the British. All right, the British, the England that you see on the TV, and it looks like a storybook with all the kings and queens and princes and all this stuff. It was their military that did this. Now, there's another portion here. So this article, it talks about a Miss Mugo, M-U-G-O. The article starts out, though Queen Elizabeth II was revered by many in Africa, her death also reignited a different sort of conversation. Her death also reignited a different sort of conversation, one that touched on the legacy of the British Empire. One that touched on the legacy of the British Empire and the brutality the monarchy meted out to people in its former colonies to keep them in line. I added that portion, to keep them in line. But this is what the article from the New York Times says. Okay, written by Abdi Latif Dahir, Lindsay Chutel, and Elian Peltier. In a younger generation of Africans growing up in a post-colonial world, some lamented that the Queen never faced up to the grim aftermath of colonialism and empire or issued an apology, because there was this they have not issued an apology for slavery or colonialism. Now, they've said things like when in November 2021, when Prince Charles, now King Charles III, when he was in Barbados, when Barbados declared their independence from Great Britain, he mentioned the atrocity of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. And he said it was if I remember correctly, he said it was abhorrent. Okay. So they'll say things like this. Oh, it was so horrible. Oh, it was abhorrent. Okay. They don't apologize for the transatlantic slave trade. And they were in Britain was involved in the transatlantic slave trade from 1562 when when John Hawkins got involved in 1562 up until now. They abolished the international transatlantic slave trade in 1807. We've talked about this here on the show before. This is where all this history comes together. All this history comes together with politics, current events, everything. All right. 1807, Great Britain abolishes the international transatlantic slave trade, which means bringing Africans into their country and their colonies to enslave them, but also going to capture them, going to buy them, etc. They abolished that. Great Britain enters into international treaties with other European nations to do this. The U.S. abolishes the international transatlantic slave trade January 1st, 1808. U.S. Congress passes the law March 2nd, 1807 to abolish the international transatlantic slave trade. The U.S. also enters into international treaties. Okay, but even though Great Britain abolished the international transatlantic slave trade or their involvement in it in 1807, slavery was still legal in their colonies, in Britain and their colonies until 1834. So they're involved in slavery from 1562 to 1834. Okay, so yeah, you abolished it, but how many billions of dollars did you make in those 200 plus years that you were involved in it? And when you all got involved in it, Great Britain dominated the transatlantic slave trade. The Industrial Revolution that starts in the 1790s in Manchester, England, was largely fueled by the production of cotton. The majority of that cotton that England produced was from slave labor. So it's like, because I saw some Europeans on social media today trying to give Great Britain credit for ending the transatlantic slave trade or ending slavery, their involvement in slavery in 1834. But then you paid reparations to 46,000 British slave owners. You took out a loan to pay them 19 million pounds. You didn't pay reparations to the 800,000 enslaved Africans you set free. And it's like the arsonist setting fire to the house, and then the arsonist calls the fire department. The fire department comes, the arsonist says, "I'm the one that called you." The news cameras show up. The arsonist jumps in front of the news cameras and say, "I saw the whole thing. I'm the one that calls the fire department." Then the arsonist gets the key to the city from the mayor, and they get a call from the governor. But the people whose house is burned down, nobody cares about them. That's what's going on here when people say, "Oh, well, they ended slavery in 1834 after over 200 years." It was about 3.1 million Africans that that Britain takes out of Africa during that period of time. You got to run that on somebody that doesn't read. So in a younger generation of Africans growing up in the post-colonial world, back to the article from the New York Times, in a younger generation of Africans growing up in a post-colonial world, some lamented that the Queen never faced up to the grim aftermath of colonialism and empire or issued an apology. They said they wanted to use the moment to recall the oppression and horror parents and grandparents endured in the name of the crown, and to urge for the return of crown jewels like the ones stolen out of South Africa, rare massive diamonds taken from the continent. Now, Alice Mugo, M-U-G-O, a 34-year-old lawyer in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi, she said, "You can look at the monarchy from the point of view of high tea and nice outfits and charity. But there's an ugly side. There's also the ugly side. And for you to ignore the ugly side is dishonest. And for you to ignore the ugly side is dishonest." Now, Miss Mugo, Alice Mugo, said she recently found her grandmother's movement pass. These are like travel papers during slavery. Her movement pass issued when the British colonial government in Kenya declared a state of emergency to help suppress the anti-colonial Mau Mau rebellion, who were fighting for their land because the British invaders had taken the land away from most of the land away from the Kenyans. The movement passes restricted the free movement of Kenyans in their own land. Okay. I would say that's kind of like gentrification right now in Detroit, but we ain't gonna go there. Okay. All right. Now it was so it was while a young Elizabeth was on an official tour in Kenya in 1952 that she learned of her father's death and that she would become queen. The clampdown on the Kenyans, which began just months after Queen Elizabeth II ascended to the throne, led to the establishment of a vast system of detention camps and the torture, rape, castration, and killings of tens of thousands of people, Okay, now the mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, the mourning, those mourning the Queen's death, Miss Mugo said, Alice Mugo, were not aware of how her government robbed millions of basic freedoms, of how Queen Elizabeth's government robbed millions of basic freedoms. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. We're going to let you hear what the economic freedom fighters of South Africa had to say as well. And we're going to go to this clip from Roland Martin Unfiltered that's gone viral also. This is the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Hello, African History Network family. You've put it off for way too long. Now it's time to act for your family, your future, and the next generation. Get life insurance for that peace of mind and security for you and your loved ones. Build your financial foundations starting today. Your independent agent at Fortified Trust Life Brokers, with over a dozen strong A-rated life insurance companies to offer you the life protection you need when it comes to final expense, term life, whole life, mortgage protection, annuities, and more. They're currently licensed in Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. Don't let a pre-existing health condition hinder you from getting life insurance. You can get the affordable coverage you need today. Life insurance is only the beginning. Email them at Fortified Trust Life for a free fact sheet explaining the 5 basic building blocks for a strong financial foundation. It's their gift to you to help you fortify your future. Email them at fortifytl828@yahoo.com or call them at 706-339-5096 and leave a message. Fortify your future today.
The work that I do is larger than the fashion industry. It's larger than the art world. And I believe that I was born to bring newness into this world. I'm Kaima McIntyre. I'm 24 years old and I'm an artist. I create everything from paintings to jewelry design, metaphysical jewelry to be specific, and fashion design. The only reason why my prom dress went viral is because people needed it. Within a few days of going viral, Notori Naughton reached out to me and she's like, I saw your dress, can you make me a dress? I was equally as shocked to be asked by a celebrity to design their dress at the age of 17. That's just one person, and the list just continues to go on, to Janet Jackson, to Tyra Banks. It really hits home. That means that the discussion is happening on the grounds in real time.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. It is Sunday, September 11th, 2022, and we are live. Okay, if you like this type of history that we share on the African History Network, and if you watch me also on Roland Martin Unfiltered, you can register for the online history classes that I teach. We had a new class that just started up on Saturday, September 10th, class number 1 of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place as well. If you missed the class, as soon as you register, you can watch the classes. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. Okay, so this class is on sale, $80, regularly $130. Even after the class is over with, you can still go back and watch the full course. Next class will be Thursday, September 15th, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we have also a new class starting up on Tuesday, the other 8-week online course that I teach, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And we look at history from 1803 through 1968, and to understand what happened to us, after slavery ended, what led to the Civil War taking place, etc., and how we got to where we are today, to understand where we need to go from here. Okay, so that's at our new website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, I want to go back to this article. This is a great article from the New York Times. This came out Friday. I saw it when I was on the air on Roland Martin's show, and I mentioned it there. In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire. I've also been seeing some other articles similar to this as well. A good one from CNN. We'll talk about on today's show. Cloud of Colonialism hangs over Queen Elizabeth's legacy in Africa. Also, there's one from TheGuardian.com, which is a UK publication. Queen's death intensifies criticism of British Empire's violent atrocities. So we're starting to see more of this history coming out now. We have to keep it up, and African people in the world have to push for reparations now against Great Britain, especially like we never have before, because international attention is on this. Okay, and we cannot let this moment pass. Now, back to this article here from the New York Times. Alice Mugo, whose grandmother, who is from Kenya, whose grandmother is from Kenya, and her grandmother was there during the Mama Rebellion in Kenya. She said those mourning the Queen's death were not aware of how Queen Elizabeth's government robbed millions of basic freedoms. Now, similar sentiments were echoed by African political party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, which said in a statement that it would not mourn the Queen, quote, because to us her death is a reminder of a very tragic period in the country and Africa's history. Okay, they went on to say the Queen they wrote was the, quote, head of an institution built up, sustained, and living off a brutal legacy of dehumanization of millions of people across the world. And we know at one point in South Africa, it was a colony, the British colonized South Africa as well. The British get South Africa in the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885. I talked about that in my broadcast on Thursday, the 3-hour broadcast I did on Thursday. Also, when I was on Roland Show as well, we talked about I mentioned the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885, where 14 European nations meet in Germany, and they carve up Africa into colonies, because they have been fighting, killing each other for so long. And they realized Africa was large enough for them to stop fighting and killing each other, and they could all benefit from Africa. And so they redrew the boundaries in Africa, and they redrew the boundary lines around the natural resources that the respective nations wanted. This is a Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885. Okay. And if we look at this here, this is a good article from thoughtco.com, thoughtco.com. The Berlin Conference to Divide Africa, the colonization of the continent by European powers. Okay. Now, this is a drawing here of what's taking place. All these Europeans, there were nobody of African descent there to represent Africa. These are all Europeans making these decisions. All right. Now, if we look at this quickly here, the Berlin Conference was Africa's undoing in more ways than one. The colonial powers superimposed their domains on the African continent. By the time independence returned to Africa in 1950, the realm had acquired a legacy of political fragmentation that could neither be eliminated nor made to operate satisfactorily. Okay. Now, if we look at this here, okay, so the purpose of the Berlin Conference in 1884, at the request of Portugal, in the Portuguese, first ones involved in the transatlantic slave trade in 1441. In 1884, at the request of Portugal, German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck called together the major Western powers of the world to negotiate questions and end confusion over the control of Africa. German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck appreciated the opportunity to expand Germany's sphere of influence over Africa and hoped to force Germany's rivals to struggle with one another over territory. Okay. At the time of the conference, 80% of Africa remained under traditional and local control. What ultimately resulted was a hodgepodge of geometric boundaries that divided Africa into 50 irregular countries, this new map of the continent of Africa was superimposed over 1,000 indigenous cultures and regions of Africa. The new countries lacked rhyme or reason and divided coherent groups of African people and pushed together disparate groups of African people, groups that didn't get along. Okay. Now, this map here, it shows you African colonization after the Berlin Conference, 1884, 1885, and it shows you the different nations that Britain gets, but who gets which nations. And Britain got a lot out of this. Countries represented at the Berlin Conference. 14 countries were represented by a plethora of ambassadors. When the conference opened in Berlin, November 15th, 1884, the countries represented at the time included Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, Norway, which was unified from 1814 to 1905. Sweden, Norway, Turkey, and the United States. Of these 14 nations, France, Germany, Great Britain, and Portugal were the major players in the conference, controlling most of colonial Africa at the time. Okay, now I want to go to this clip here from Roland Martin Unfiltered. And we started out talking about Professor Uju Anya of Carnegie Mellon University and Jeff Bezos comment she made about Queen Elizabeth II, and then Jeff Bezos criticizing her comments. And then we started talking about Queen Elizabeth II, British colonialism, and slavery. Okay, let's go to this clip, Giovanni.
Now let's talk about Queen Elizabeth II. First of all, what's quite interesting, Prince Charles actually spoke today. And if you want to show, which is strange to me, I really don't understand this here. ABC, NBC, CBS, they all carried his first speech as king. But these are the same people who didn't carry President Biden's speech on saving democracy. I'm just trying to understand, and maybe y'all can tell me why Prince Charles, now King Charles speech. Y'all come on, sure, yeah. Maybe y'all can explain to me why that was worthy literally of all three broadcast networks carrying the speech. But when the United States president gave a primetime speech talking about the threat to democracy, well, you did not quite see the coverage. Now, if you look at social media, you have seen all different types of responses to the death of Queen Elizabeth II, who died at 96 years old. One that's gotten a lot of attention is this professor from Carnegie Mellon, Uju Anya. And this was her initial tweet. She said, "I heard the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating." Ouch. Now, that wasn't the only tweet that she sent out, but that particular tweet, it got the attention of the richest person in the world, Jeff Bezos. This is what he tweeted. "This is someone supposedly working to make the world better. I don't think so. Wow." Well, folks weren't too happy with old Jeff. They began to rip him as well. Look at these tweets that went out. "Imagine how people will react when it's your turn. Jeff, your work to bust unions and force workers to pee in bottles, please shut up. I know it's not you saying something about making the world better." Those were three of the responses. "Pretty funny coming from the guy who could end world poverty and homelessness 100 times over and simply chooses not to. It's never too late to improve the labor conditions and pay of your warehouse workers. Your workers piss in bottles en masse. Sit this one out." Ouch. Headline: "Billionaire opposed to paying his employees well so that he can go to space complains about other people not making the world a better place. No surprise that the richest man in the world is upset when the people don't bend the knee to the ruling class. Breaking: man who has workers peeing in bottles and having miscarriages in warehouses to meet quotas tries to take the moral high ground. Ooh, it's insane that Jeff Bezos tweets with us, a billionaire who blatantly and violently exploits workers and feels comfortable trying to have a morality battle on the Bird app. Now, the professor, Uju Anya, she didn't back down. Now, Twitter did delete that particular tweet from her, saying that it violated their standards. Not sure how that's the case. But when you begin to look at her Twitter feed, boom, she said, if anyone expects me to express anything but disdain for the monarch who supervised a government that sponsored the genocide that massacred and displaced half my family and the consequences of which those alive today are still trying to overcome, you can keep wishing upon a star. Yeah, I don't think she's going to be backing down from any of that. There was some other, I'm looking at some other tweets that she had posted. Again, she had, all kind of different tweets. She did respond to Jeff Bezos. She said, "May everyone you and your merciless greed have harm in this world. Remember you as fondly as I remember my colonizers." Wow. Again, her tweet that spurred a reaction. Carnegie Mellon did offer a response. This was what they posted. They said, "We do not condone the offensive and objectionable messages posted by Uju Anya today on her personal social media account. Free expression is core to the mission of higher education. However, the views she shared absolutely do not represent the values of the institution, nor the standards of discourse we seek to foster." So here's what's interesting. And this was a tweet here that Uju retweeted. "Reminder that Queen Elizabeth is not a remnant of colonial times. She was an active participant in colonialism. She actively tried to stop independence movements, and she tried to keep newly independent colonies from leaving the Commonwealth. The evil she did was enough." She was talking about this article here. This woman was, it says she was tortured with axes during Kenya's struggle for independence from British colonial rule. As Britain celebrates the platinum jubilee of its monarch, this old fighter wants to send her a message: let Elizabeth bring what belongs to me. Let's go to my panel here. I find it's very interesting when I said this last night, Michael, it's very interesting when people, they have this view that when someone passes, you in the first 24, 48 hours, first week, you can't say anything bad about them. You hear the phrase, you can't say anything good about somebody, don't say anything at all. I saw a video, Dale Hughley, he said that people should have compassion when someone dies. But I saw these pieces, I saw this back and forth, and these tweets from Uju Anya, and she talked about how her family was devastated, how they were massacred. And in fact, there was an interview that she gave, and she said this to the person in the interview. She said, "I am the child and sibling of survivors of genocide. From 1967 to 1970, more than 3 million civilians were massacred when the Igbo people of Nigeria tried to form the independent country." And I said this, and I think it's important for us to say it. So people are angry that individuals who dealt with genocide because of British colonial rule are not celebrating her life the way they want them to. Yet again, people gladly condemned Fidel Castro. And so this goes to what I always talk about: the person that controls the narrative controls how we think and feel. And frankly, the view in this country is don't say anything bad about Queen Elizabeth II because she was a great, wonderful, happy person, and ignore colonial rule and its impact on indigenous people.
Well, Roland, this is one of the reasons why the Black Star Media Network is so important. And last night I did a 3-hour broadcast dealing with Queen Elizabeth II, British colonialism and slavery, because I watched a lot of the coverage all day long on MSNBC. That's basically what I had it on all day, watching MSNBC, and they didn't deal with any of that history. Okay, the opulence, when they showed all the footage and going back decades, and they showed the gold carriage drawn by 30 horses, and they show all the people in their regalia and things like this. They don't talk about the British colonialism that exploited people, tortured people, enslaved people to create the billions of dollars. So you see that opulence displayed, So when now within the last maybe 3 hours, New York Times just published an article. In Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire, and it deals with Kenya and the Mau Mau Rebellion. Okay, when you go, I did a lot of research yesterday on Queen Elizabeth, but also on Great Britain. When you look at how many African countries they got from the Berlin Conference of 1884, okay, and you look, they got the Gambia, Nigeria, where that sister's from, okay, they got Ghana, Sierra Leone, they got Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, okay. When you go talk to those African people who have relatives who were killed by the British Empire, they have no love for her. They have no love for King Charles III. May 19th, 2022, when Meghan Markle married Prince Harry, I did a 2-hour broadcast, and I said, Black people watched the royal wedding and got teary-eyed, but you forgot about the transatlantic slave trade. Because I said she married into, this is no disrespect to Meghan Markle, I said she married into a family of colonizers. They're not colonizers because they're white. They're colonizers because Britain colonized 1/5 of the world population 100 years ago. 1/5 of the world population was under British rule. And they didn't rule with kindness. They didn't rule with a smile. They ruled with brutality. So I don't wish anything ill on Queen Elizabeth II. I sure as hell don't miss her. And I hope some more join her. Seriously. Go study the history of the British Royal Empire and how they got what they got. These are some demons. These are colonizers. That's it. I understand. I may have expressed it differently than Uju Anya, but I totally understand what she's saying, because those were her relatives who were massacred by these white supremacists, by these colonizers, who then want to put a handshake and a smile. They won't even have a conversation about reparations with Jamaica. Jamaica's about to sue them for reparations. They won't even have a conversation about reparations. So I have no love lost for them.
Here are some, Etan Thomas, former NBA player, Kelly, he posted a couple of videos on his Twitter feed. I thought, might as well play both of them. Just want to give folks a look at this. So check this out.
In 2022, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II became the first British monarch to celebrate a Platinum Jubilee. The celebrations took place over a 4-day bank holiday. Millions of Brits partook in street parties, and people around the world joined in on the celebrations. But is celebrating the British monarch harmless fun, or does it normalize the monarchy's long history of colonialism? And is it a celebration of British imperialism? Here are 4 ways in which the British royal family has benefited from colonialism. They have historically benefited from the enslavement of human beings. In 1562, John Hawkins was the first Englishman to include African people in his cargo. He traded these people for ginger and sugar. On his next voyage in 1564, Queen Elizabeth I funded a vessel for his journey. The British East India Company was formed in 1600 to exploit trade with Southeast Asia. They did that by colonizing land and exploiting people through the transatlantic slave trade. The figure who signed the Royal Charter allowing this all to happen was also Elizabeth I. Between 1690 and 1807, an estimated 6 million Africans were transported from Africa to the Americas on British or Anglo-American ships. The royal family and the British Parliament protected the trade. After Elizabeth I's death, the Royal African Company was established in 1660 by the Duke of York. The company transported more than 187,000 slaves who were often branded DY, for the Duke of York. It's difficult to say how much the royals benefited from slavery, but many say it funded the entire British treasury. And it's safe to say that much of the monarch's significance, power, and wealth stems from the enslavement of Africans. Lucy Worsley, the chief curator of Royal Historic Palaces, says that all royal palaces from the 17th century have an element of money which was derived from slavery, including Kensington Palace and Hampton Court. The royal family was built on a legacy of stolen land, goods, and atrocities. Queen Elizabeth II's largest diamond, the Kohinoor, was stolen from a 10-year-old prince in India along with his land in the 19th century. It was transferred to Queen Mary in 1911 and was handed down to the current queen. Both India and Pakistan have asked for the diamond's return, but it's still very much owned by the crown. In India, between the 1700s and mid-20th century, an estimated $45 trillion was stolen by the British under the vestiges of the crown. Famines which occurred as a result of Britain's non-intervention policy led to the death of more than 30 million Indians. In 1947...
Now, that was sort of like part one, then that was also a part two.
He wanted to get Britain out of India quickly. The decision to carve up a country led to 15 million people being displaced and between 1 and 2 million people dying. Of course, this is just India. At its peak, Britain had colonized 25% of the world's surface. From the Mau Mau massacre in Kenya to concentration camps in South Africa, Britain, under the vestiges of the crown, has a long and bloody history of colonial atrocities, and the royals have historically been at the center of them. The prestige of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is an organization of 52 independent member states. What it actually is a collection of former British colonies and Rwanda and Mozambique. The Commonwealth originated after World War II, when much of India and Africa was becoming independent. The Commonwealth claims that it is an association of sovereign nations working towards shared goals of prosperity, democracy, and peace. But critics say that the association promotes neocolonialism through free trade agreements, which favor more developed economies. British companies own more than $1 trillion of Africa's key resources. The Queen is the head of the Commonwealth, and Charles has been appointed her successor, which allows the British monarchy to remain in a position of international privilege and go on tours of Commonwealth countries. But that's not all.
So, Kelly, what you're now seeing, I saw a story on CNN, I saw some other stories, that you're seeing now reporters now, the next day, follow what people are saying and have to do these stories because you just kind of can't ignore it. Well, you can, but it's a little hard when now it's more of a democratic situation where the media isn't the gatekeepers, and now people can actually drive with independent media, with social media. So they're not talking about it. The public still can.
I think it's one of the many benefits that we take for granted when it comes to social media. And that is, like you said, the gatekeeping of information by mainstream media is no longer. We can actually seek out real information, the truth, if you will, about pretty much anything we want to find out. When it comes to the death of Queen Elizabeth, it is interesting to me how, my timeline has been split. You have the people who love talking about, the royals and all the glitz and the glam, and, they're mourning her death. But on the other side, similar to the professors, do you see what her and her family have destroyed over the course of 70 years and even beyond that, on both ends of the timeline? I think you cannot take away the fact that whenever you are in power to this degree, you can be a nice person individually, but at the end of the day, you got that power by being just demonic, such as Michael said. I didn't want to say that word, but it really is several crimes against humanity, several unethical decisions, several evil decisions that brought about this monarchy, this level of power. So I understand people's pain and to some extent celebration of her passing, because it marks the end of an era. And considering how her successor, her son, is not necessarily nearly as favored as she has been, I'm curious to see just how strong the Commonwealth is going to be after, the funeralization of her and him being crowned and all those things. I'm curious to see how he is going to try and keep it all together if it's even possible in this day and age, because again, we have the information necessary to research and to frankly rebel against this properly, because we know what happened, we know how they got their wealth, and people want their things back. They want their diamonds back, they want their wealth back, they want their prestige and their dignity back, and people are going to fight for that. Countries are going to fight for that.
Hello, African History Network family. You've put it off for way too long. Now it's time to act for your family, your future, and the next generation. Get life insurance for that peace of mind and security for you and your loved ones. Build your financial foundations starting today. Your independent agent at Fortified Trust Life Brokers, with over a dozen strong A-rated life insurance companies to offer you the life protection you need when it comes to final expense, term life, whole life, mortgage protection, annuities, and more. They're currently licensed in Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. Don't let a pre-existing health condition hinder you from getting life insurance. You can get the affordable coverage you need today. Life insurance is only the beginning. Email them at Fortified Trust Life for a free fact sheet explaining the 5 basic building blocks for a strong financial foundation. It's their gift to you to help you fortify your future. Email them at fortifytl828@yahoo.com or call them at 706-339-5096 and leave a message. Fortify your future today. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. All right. If you like this type of information, also, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Visit our new website, theAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have the information there. And this helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. Also, register for my new 8-week online class. It just started up on Saturday, September 10th, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, where we get deep into a lot of this information. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about some of the news stories that have come out since the death of Queen Elizabeth II, dealing with British colonialism and the history of the British involvement in slavery, things like this. The cloud of colonialism hangs over Queen Elizabeth's legacy in Africa. And then also Professor Uju Anya, who now I follow on Twitter, she got backlash because of a tweet that she made about Queen Elizabeth II and the Great Britain's involvement in atrocities in Nigeria. Okay. Now, there's a good article. We're going back to the clip in just a second, Giovanni. There's a good article from Huffington Post. I posted this on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. It got over 4,500 likes. The View host Sonny Hostin criticizes Queen Elizabeth II for crown of pillaged jewels, pillaged jewels. And I said, "Speak, my sister, speak," in my Facebook post. Sonny Hostin also defended a since deleted tweet from Nigerian-born Carnegie Mellon professor Uju Anya, who hoped the Queen's death was excruciating. Okay, this article is from September 9th, 2022 from HuffingtonPost.com. Etan Thomas had that on his he had that clip on his Twitter. I think it was on his Twitter page or something like that on social media. It's called Slavery, Colonization, and the Crown. Just Google that, Slavery, Colonization, and the Crown. Okay, but that was an excerpt from Roland Martin Unfiltered. So I meant to say May 19th, 2022. I mean May 19th, 2018. May 19th, 2018, when Meghan Markle married Prince Harry. That was also on Queen Charlotte Sophia's birthday. Queen Charlotte Sophia was of African Moorish ancestry on her mother's side of the family. She was the wife to King George III, Queen Charlotte Sophia. And it was also Malcolm X's birthday, May 19th as well. There's an article from the Washington Post, and we deal with this in my class. There's an article from the Washington Post dealing with Meghan Markle. So it came out in 2017 before she married Prince Harry. And it's an article dealing with, will Meghan Markle be the first biracial royal or something like that? Okay, let me pull this up. This is from the Washington Post. And at the time, now I'd already knew about Queen Charlotte Sophia because we talk about Queen Charlotte Sophia in my classes. But this article right here by Deneen L. Brown, and Deneen L. Brown writes some really good articles for the Washingtons. And some people thought that Meghan Markle was going to be a queen. I'm like, no, she's the Duchess of Sussex, the Duchess of Sussex. Okay, and then she gave up her title. We know she and Prince Harry gave up her title. Okay, all right. Meghan Markle, Queen Charlotte, and the wedding of Britain's first mixed race royal. Okay, this is from this is the one on the day of the wedding, May 19th, 2018. But here is Queen Charlotte Sophia on my left, who was of African Moorish ancestry on her mother's side of the family, and she was the wife to King George III. Queen Charlotte of Mecklenburg Strelitz. King George III was the king of England that the 13 colonies were revolting against during the American Revolutionary War. Okay, his wife was of African descent. Charlottesville, when you had the Unite the Right rally in Virginia, okay, in Virginia, where you had the white supremacists, and they said they were trying to save a statue of Robert E. Lee. Okay, Charlottesville is named after Queen Charlotte Sophia. Wouldn't they have a fit to know that the city that they were in having their white supremacist rally was named after a woman of African descent? All right. There was I was looking at, I was doing a lot of research like the past 4 days, and I had to teach my class on Saturday, but I was looking at a map dealing with the countries that Great Britain has colonized. Okay. And there's a number of different maps that show this. The one I'm going to look at right here, and there's some from the Commonwealth. There's some maps from the Commonwealth also. The one I want to look at right here, this is from Wikipedia. List of countries gained independence from the UK. List of countries that gained independence from the UK. Because this map shows you, there's some maps that show you it shows like the flags of those nations. This map shows you the actual names of the nations. That's why I want to show you this here. Okay. This one shows the actual names of the nations. And let's zoom in on this as much as we can. We're going to go from left to right. Okay. So we see, in those of us who live in the Detroit area, we know Canada is part of the Commonwealth as well. Right. So you have Canada in 1931. They gained their independence from Great Britain. United States, 1776, American Revolutionary War, but they kept slavery. They fought for their freedom, but not ours. Jamaica, 1962, Belize, 1981, Antigua and Barbuda, 1981. Now, Barbuda is looking at becoming a republic and leaving the Commonwealth. They were talking about that on MSNBC today. St. Kitts and Nevis, 1983. St. Lucia, 1979. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 1931. Guyana, 1966. Trinidad and Tobago, 1962. Barbados, 1966. That's where Rihanna's from, Barbados. Now, November of 2021, Barbados announced that they were breaking away from Great Britain and forming themselves as a republic. Okay, they already had declared their independence in 1966, but here they're forming themselves as a republic, and so that Queen Elizabeth would not be the head of state anymore. Grenada, 1974. Dominica, 1978. The Bahamas, 1973. Okay. Then we go over to Ireland, 1922. Malta, 1964. Cyprus, 1960. Jordan, 1946. Iraq, 1932. Kuwait, 1961. Bahrain, 1971. Qatar, 1971, Pakistan, 1947, India, 1947. That's India, Mahatma Gandhi, the racist Mahatma Gandhi. He was a racist. He did not like African people. He did not like South Africans. There's some very disparaging things Mahatma Gandhi said about African people. Myanmar, 1948, Sri Lanka, 1948. United Arab Emirates, 1971, Yemen, 1967. Then we go to the African nations. And these are nations that the U.S. got from that Great Britain got from the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885. Gambia, 1965. Sierra Leone, 1961. We're coming up on a break. All right. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, Future Radio. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Okay, I want to go back to this map, and then we're going to go to clip number 2 from CNN, Giovanni. So this map that I have up, now this is from Wikipedia. This is from the Commons on Wikipedia. List of countries that have gained independence from the UK, from the United Kingdom. List of countries that have gained independence from the United Kingdom. We know the United Kingdom is made up of Britain, Scotland, and Wales. But those in control, this was the British Empire. Okay, and at one point, about 100 years ago, about 1/5 of the world's population, and some sources say 25% of the world's population, was under British rule. They were colonies of Great Britain. So when we look at these African countries, these are countries that the U.S. got, Great Britain got basically from the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 1885 that we talked about a few minutes ago. Gambia, 1965, declared their independence from Great Britain. Sierra Leone, 1961. You have Ghana, 1957. Nigeria, 1960. Botswana, 1966. South Africa, 1931. Lesotho, 1966. Now, Lesotho is an enclave inside of South Africa. It's a country within South Africa, like Highland Park, Michigan is a city within the city of Detroit. That's what Lesotho is. Swaziland, 1968. Zimbabwe, 1980. Malawi, 1964. Tanzania, 1961. Zambia, 1964. Kenya, Zambia, 1964. Hold on. Kenya, 1963. Let's zoom in back in on this here. Uganda, 1962. Hold on. Where are we? Okay. Uganda, 1962. Sudan, 1956. Egypt, 1922. Okay. So that's just Africa right there. Those are just African nations. Okay. And then you look at Australia, 1942, declared their independence. Brunei, Malaysia, 1957. Papua New Guinea, 1975. We look at Solomon Islands, 1978. Tonga, 1970. Fiji, 1970. New Zealand, 1947. Okay, there are a few others. You can check those out. Nauru, 1957. You can check out this map. Okay, these are just the nations that gained their independence from the United Kingdom. All right. So when you go through and look at this map, and especially when you look at in the broadcast I did on Thursday, and also in my class on Saturday, we went through and looked at a map of the nations that Great Britain got from the Berlin Conference, of the African nations Great Britain got from the Berlin Conference. Is one thing to, just read the names of the nations here. It's one thing just to read the names of them. But then when you look at the map and see where they are and you see how many Great Britain got, then you start understanding, you start having a better understanding of this. I want to go to clip number, before we go to clip 2 here, there's another good article. This is from Reuters.com. Reuters.com. Okay. Charles succession stirs Caribbean calls for reparations. Now on MSNBC today, somebody must have lit a fire under the sister that runs MSNBC now. Sister, you got to make your money for these white people. I totally understand that, but they were in Kingston, Jamaica today, interviewing the head of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Now, hopefully they do that on Monday. It's one thing to do it on Saturday and Sunday when not a lot of people are not watching. Hopefully they continue this on Monday and Tuesday. Have them on Morning Joe on Monday morning. Have them on Morning Joe. Have the discussion about reparations on Morning Joe Monday morning. Okay, but they were in Kingston, Jamaica, and talking about Jamaica wanting reparations from Great Britain and the atrocities that happened in Jamaica. But this article right here from Reuters.com, Charles secession stirs Caribbean calls for reparations, removal of monarch as head of state, removal of monarch as head of state. Okay, now the ascension of King Charles to the British throne has stirred renewed calls from politicians and activists and former colonies in the Caribbean to remove the British monarch as their head of state, and for Britain to pay slavery reparations, Now, King Charles succeeds his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who ruled for 70 years and died on Thursday afternoon, September 8th. The Prime Minister of Jamaica said his country would mourn Elizabeth, and his counterpart in Antigua and Barbuda ordered flags to half staff until the day of her burial. But in some quarters, there are doubts about the role a distant monarch should play in the 21st century. Earlier this year, some Commonwealth leaders expressed unease at a summit in Kigali, Rwanda, about the passage of leadership of the 56 nation club from Elizabeth to Charles. That's the Commonwealth, the 56 nations that make up the Commonwealth. And an 8-day tour in March of 2022 by now heir to the throne, Prince William, and his wife, Kate Middleton, to Belize, Jamaica, and the Bahamas, was marked by calls for reparation payments and an apology for slavery. Now, we covered that tour that they did. We covered that here remotely because I wasn't there on location. We covered it here on the African History Network show, and we dealt with how those African people in those Caribbean nations were calling for reparations. As the role of the monarchy changes, we expect this can be an opportunity to advance the questions of reparations for our region. Nyambi Hall Campbell, a 44-year-old academic who chairs the Bahamas National Reparations Committee, said on Thursday, September 8th. Nyambi Hall Campbell sent condolences to the Queen's family and noted Charles' acknowledgement of the, quote, appalling atrocity of slavery at a ceremony last year, 2021, marking the end of British rule as Barbados became a republic. We dealt with that here on this show also. when Barbados held their ceremony, and we talked about King Charles referring to slavery as an appalling atrocity. He did not offer an apology. He did not offer an apology. Okay. Now, it's important also to note, based upon their constitution in Britain, in England, there's a parliament. That's their government, their structure, like the House of Representatives in the U.S. Senate here. There's a parliament. They have a prime minister. That's the equivalent to our president. The royals don't get involved in politics. The royals don't write policy. They don't get involved in politics. However, Queen Elizabeth II did meet with members of parliament every week. Now, I don't know what they met about. But the royals don't get involved in politics. Now, he did call the slavery an atrocity. They, however, have never offered an apology for slavery. Now, also, Queen Elizabeth II, her net worth was $500 million. Okay. The monarchy, let me see how they express this. We look at this piece here from Cosmopolitan that I talked about on our special broadcast on Thursday. It deals with the Queen Elizabeth II net worth. Okay. We'll go to that clip when we come back from the break, Giovanni. Clip 2, wondering how high Queen Elizabeth II's net worth was before she passed. Wonder no longer. They updated the article because this was a piece that really came out before she passed away. They've updated it since then. The Queen's stamp collection alone is worth 100 million pounds. 100 million pounds. Okay, so they go through and they talk about according to Forbes magazine, the Crown, through the firm, which actually goes by Monarchy PLC, the British Crown, holds nearly $28 billion in assets. Quick tally of the various assets. The Crown Estates holds 19.5 billion. Buckingham Palace is worth 4.9 billion. The Duchy of Cornwall holds 1.3 billion. The Duchy of Lancaster holds 748 million. Kensington Palace, which is the palace that you're hearing about a lot now. Kensington Palace has an estimated worth of $630 million, and the Crown Estate Scotland holds $592 million. Okay. Now, she had a net worth of $500 million. That aside, okay. As well. So you can read the rest of this article here. So the monarchy, I don't know all the legalities of this, but I think the monarchy could have cut a check of like $100 million to the nations, especially the Caribbean nations like Jamaica, that they colonized. The monarchy, because I'm not talking about going through parliament. I'm just talking about what the monarchy controls. We know she was worth $500 million. She could have sent some money to those nations out of her own pocket. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. Okay. We were talking about this article right before the break from Reuters.com. And this piece deals with a renewed call for reparations from Caribbean nations, okay, after the death of Queen Elizabeth II. The name of this article, once again, session stirs Caribbean calls for reparations, removal of monarch as head of state, okay? So if we go back to where we left off right before the break, we know that when then Prince Charles attended the ceremony of Barbados becoming a republic, he mentioned the atrocity of slavery. Okay. He acknowledged the appalling atrocity of slavery, didn't offer an apology. However. Now, Nyambi Hall Campbell said she hopes King Charles would lead in a way reflecting the quote, justice required of the times, the justice required of the times, and that justice is reparatory. Justice is reparatory justice, and that justice is reparatory justice, end quote. Now, more than 10 million Africans were shackled in the transatlantic slave trade. Transatlantic slave trade database puts it at 4.5 million. Many people think that's still undercounting it. Between the 15th and 19th centuries, those who survived the brutal voyage were forced to labor on plantations in the Caribbean and the Americas, like in Brazil. Jamaican reparations advocates Rosella Hamilton said King Charles III's comments at the Kigali conference about his personal sorrow of slavery offered, quote, some degree of hope that he will learn from the history, understand the painful impact that many nations have endured till today, and address the need for reparations. Okay, she said it offers some degree of hope that he will learn from the history, understand the painful impact that many nations have endured till today, and address the need for reparations. All right, now, the king did not mention reparations in the Kigali speech in Rwanda. The Advocates Network, which Hamilton coordinates, published an open letter calling for apologies and reparations during William and Kate's visit. The Queen's grandchildren have the chance to lead the reparations conversation. Hamilton said. Now, Jamaica's government last year in 2021 announced plans to ask Britain for compensation for forcibly transporting an estimated 600,000 Africans to work on sugarcane and banana plantations in Jamaica that created fortunes for British slaveholders. Quote, whoever will take over the position should be asked to allow the royal family to pay African people reparations, said David Denny, General Secretary of the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration from Barbados. Quote, we should all work towards removing the royal family as head of state of our nations, he said. I totally agree. The Commonwealth, kick them out as head of state. I totally agree. Jamaica has signaled it may soon follow Barbados in ditching royal rule, but remain members of the Commonwealth. An August 2022 survey showed 56% of Jamaicans favor removing the British monarch as the head of state. Michaela Phillips, opposition member of Jamaica's parliament in 2020, filed a motion backing the removal. Quote, I am hoping, as the prime minister has said in one of his expressions, that he would move faster when there is a new monarch in place, Phillips said on Thursday. Okay, so check out the rest of this article here. You're going to see a lot more talk about this, a lot more articles regarding this. Charles II stirs Caribbean calls for reparations, removal of monarch as head of state. Okay. All right. Now, there was a really good article from CNN. Good article from CNN called "Cloud of Colonialism Hangs Over Queen Elizabeth's Legacy in Africa." Cloud of Colonialism hangs over Queen Elizabeth's legacy in Africa. And I posted this on, I think I posted on my personal page on Facebook. Okay. I don't remember if I posted on our fan page or not. But this ties into this next clip that I want to go to. Now, this clip here, I actually posted on my Instagram page, Michael Imhotep on Instagram. And we posted this on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. Okay. And this deals with mixed feelings. This deals with mixed feelings that Africans have regarding the passing of Queen Elizabeth. Let's go to clip 2, Giovanni.
There's a complicated legacy on the African continent. The fairy tale is that Queen Elizabeth went up the treetops here in Kenya, a princess, and came down a queen, because when she was here in Kenya, she learned that her dad had died and she was to be the queen. But that also was the start of the 8 years after that the Kenyan colonial government cracked down. The British colonial government cracked down brutally on the Mau Mau rebellion against the colonial administration. They herded more than 1 million people into a concentration camp where they were tortured and dehumanized. And so across the African continent, there have been people who are saying, I will not mourn for Queen Elizabeth because my ancestors suffered great atrocities under her people and that she never fully acknowledged that. And that is why among African Twitter, among Black Twitter and social media, there's been many people who are ungovernable with takes that maybe don't quite follow the official state religion, which is why you see a statement like this from the South African opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, that said, we do not mourn the death of Elizabeth because to us, her death is a reminder of a very tragic period in this country and Africa's history. During her 70-year reign as queen, she never once acknowledged the atrocities that her family inflicted on native people that Britain invaded across the world. If there is really life and justice after death, may Elizabeth and her ancestors get what they deserve. There are people on social media who are calling out this sort of statements for saying this is not the right time, you should honor the dead. But the critics say, when is really the right time to talk about the legacy of colonialism and the many, many after effects that continue to live with us today? But many African leaders are paying tributes to Queen Elizabeth, including the Kenyan President-elect William Ruto, who's called her 70-year reign and guiding of the Commonwealth as admirable. You saw, for instance, a statement from President Muhammadu Buhari of Nigeria that said, my family and the more than 200 million Nigerians have learned with immense sadness of the passing of Queen Elizabeth and the end of her unique and wonderful 70-year reign. She was the only British sovereign known to 90% of our population. And while there are people who supported President Buhari for that, he has gotten a lot of criticism for that sort of sentiment. To use the slang of the times, he's gotten racial for many people seeing him ignoring the impact of British colonialism in Nigeria. Michael.
Yeah, honoring the woman, but acknowledging the stain of colonialism.
Okay, that was a clip from CNN dealing with that history. In the piece that I shared from the New York Times, dealing with in Africa, the Queen's death renews a debate about the legacy of the British Empire. They have the statement from the economic freedom fighters in South Africa, and they have a link to the Twitter page where you can read their full statement. Okay. So check that out, because they said they don't mourn the death of Queen Elizabeth as well. South Africa was a colony of Great Britain. I can't say that I blame them. A few minutes ago, before a couple of breaks ago, we talked about briefly this article from the Huffington Post, which deals with Sunny Hostin of The View. And I posted this article on our fan page, the African History Network. It got over 5,500 likes. And I said, speak, my sister, speak. I totally agree with Sunny Hostin's comments. And I appreciate her, a celebrity of her stature. I appreciate her using her platform to speak truth to power and push this out in the forefront. The View host Sunny Hostin criticizes Queen Elizabeth II for crown of pillaged jewels. Hostin also defended a since deleted tweet from Nigerian-born Carnegie Mellon professor Uju Anya, who hoped the Queen's death was "quote unquote" excruciating. Okay, and here's Sunny Hostin. When Queen Elizabeth II died Thursday at 96, in her book Scottish Residents, in her Scottish residence of Balmoral, thousands of Brits took to the streets in mourning. Not all were as grief-stricken as Daniel Craig, however, as The View co-host Sunny Hostin made sure to remind viewers on Friday. Sunny Hostin said, quote, she wore a crown with pillaged stones from India and Africa. Queen Elizabeth II wore a crown of pillaged stones from India and Africa. And now what you're seeing, at least in the Black communities that I'm a part of, they want reparations. They want reparations. Now, Sunny Hostin also defended a controversial tweet regarding the news of the monarch's death. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show. All right. So right before the break, we were talking about this article here from HuffingtonPost.com, and it deals with Sunny Hostin of The View and some comments she made regarding comments she made defending Uju Anya, defending her criticism of Queen Elizabeth II. Okay, and if we go back to this piece here, all right, let's scroll down. Let's go back to this. Okay, so Sunny Hostin also defended a controversial tweet regarding the news of Queen Elizabeth's death, which has been deleted by Twitter from Nigerian-born Carnegie Mellon professor Uju Anya. Now, Sunny Hostin defeated the tweet by arguing that it was, quote, it was a thieving, raping, genocidal empire, before adding, quote, we can mourn the queen and not the empire. We can mourn the queen and not the empire. Now, I've seen a couple of articles making that point. We can mourn the queen and not the empire. Okay, I'm not mourning either one of them. You know, my queen died in 2018. Her name was Aretha Franklin. So, as a matter of fact, when I posted on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, I did a post, and it said that somebody asked me, because I saw African Americans posting, and they were praying for the queen and things like that. And one post that I did said that you should pray that Queen Elizabeth gives reparations to the nations that were colonies of Great Britain, and or pray that she pushes for reparations, maybe not give, but pushes for reparations before she passed away. And then also I post, I'm gonna pull these up quickly here. I did one post where, now that post got over 2,700 likes on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. I also did one where I said that somebody asked me if I was praying for the queen, and I said, for what? Aretha Franklin's already an ancestor, because that's the queen right there, Aretha Franklin. She died in Detroit in 2018. Let me blow this up. This is on my personal page, Michael Imhotep. So we have this right here. We have this post that I did on September 8th. Okay. And it got hundreds of likes on our fan page. Stranger, Michael Imhotep, are you praying for the queen? Me, for what? Aretha Franklin's already an ancestor. Right. So, and then I did this post here. They got over 2,700 likes on our fan page, The African History Network. So if you don't follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, you definitely should. This one, let me see, this other post that I did, it said, let me go to this, hold on. This other post dealt with this other post dealt with praying for the queen as well. Queen Elizabeth, let me see if I could find that one also. This dealt with, saying that you should pray she pushes for reparations before she dies. Okay, can we get to that one? All right, we'll try to bring that one up also. I can't find that one right now. But anyway, That one got a huge response as well. Okay, now, oh, this one right here. Let's pull this up. Okay, let me show this here on the screen. I said if you're praying for, if you are of African descent, praying for Queen Elizabeth II, you better be praying she gives reparations to the countries Britain colonized before she dies. That's what I said. If she doesn't give reparations because they don't get involved in politics, she can't write legislation. She could have left some money to those nations in a will. We see what happens. She meets with Parliament every week, members of Parliament every week. She could push in those meetings. So, we'll see what happens. But African people around the world have to push for reparations now against Great Britain, especially like we never have before. Okay. Going back to this article dealing with Sonny Hostin. Okay. So Hostin defended the tweet from Uju Anya. Now, the monarchy, quote, was built on the backs of Black and brown people, Sonny Hostin said, who previously lived and studied in London. So she has like more in-depth knowledge of this than many people and even many African Americans, because she actually lived and studied in London. Okay. While the show co-host Ana Navarro suggested the United States was guilty of the same and built the country on the same backs as Britain, Sonny Hostin doubled down and stated firmly, and we want our reparations. Let's just keep in mind that the British colonies that became the United States, the colonies that became the United States, the 13 colonies started out as British colonies. So Great Britain was involved in the transatlantic slave trade before the United States got involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Let's just keep that in mind. Let's deal with the order. Let's deal with it chronologically. Great Britain got involved here in the 13 colonies before the United States came into existence in 17, if you want to start it in 1776, before then. Now, during the American Revolutionary War, 1775 to 1783, the colonies are fighting for their independence and their freedom, but they also wanted the freedom to keep slavery. Even though there were some abolitionists, they wanted the freedom to keep and maintain slavery and to profit from it as well. Okay, so like Dr. King said, we're coming to get our check. Now, this piece here, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're running out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. You can watch us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. We're going to keep going for a few more minutes here. I want to deal with this. This is from Snopes.com. Did Queen Elizabeth II own stolen diamond, quote unquote, stolen diamond named Great Star of Africa? Because there's a lot of memes floating around on social media dealing with this, okay? And this breaks down actually what happened. Also, there's a good article from face-to-faceafrica.com from 2019 dealing with this diamond also. Snopes said, we look for the truth behind a claim involving Queen Elizabeth II and what is believed to be the largest diamond of its kind in the world. This came out September 8th, 2022. Okay. So those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're going to deal with this here in just a minute. Visit our website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register for our new 8-week online class that started up, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understand the transatlantic slave trade, where they didn't teach you in school. And support the African History Network. We have to get out of here. Right now, it's correct your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next week. Peace. All right, stand by. Okay, let me go to this. Let me go to this quickly. Then we have to get out of here. And some of this information, a lot of this information, we get deeper into the class in. And it is, I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, all of that. Okay, so you're really going to learn a lot. The article from right here from Snopes. This is what I want. From Snopes.com. Okay, once again, did Queen Elizabeth II own stolen diamond named Great Star of Africa? So Snopes goes through and they investigate internet internet conspiracy theories, internet memes, things floating around, claims floating around on social media. They go through and investigate that, and they show you their evidence. They go through, research it, and show you what they found. Okay, so they talk about on the morning of Queen Elizabeth II's death at the age of 96, before the news was made public, the Twitter account Africa_archives tweeted, Queen Elizabeth II owns the largest clear-cut diamond in the world, known as the Great Star of Africa. The 530-carat gem was mined in South Africa in 1905. It was stolen from South Africa. It has an estimated worth of $400 million. Here's the tweet from Africa_archives. Okay. And they show her with the wearing the crown here. All right, now the rumor then continued in the second tweet that said the British claim that it was given to them as a symbol of friendship and peace, yet it was during colonialism. The British claim that it was given to them as a symbol of friendship and peace, yet it was during colonialism. The British then replaced the name. Replaced the name, the Great Star of Africa, with the name of Chairman of the Mine, Thomas Cullinan, Cullinan. The British replaced the name, the Great Star of Africa, with the name of the Chairman of the Mine, Thomas Cullinan, the diamond mine. Okay, so and then they show the diamond here and the crown. Okay, now in this story, we'll take a look at all of the facts regarding the history of the diamond, including its discovery, purchase, transfer, and controversy. Now, the Cullinan diamond on January 26, 1905, a 3,106 carat diamond was discovered in the premier mine in the Transvaal province of South Africa. It was given the name Cullinan after the mine's chairman. Thomas Cullinan. He was born in South Africa, according to author Nigel Helm's 1974 biography of the diamond magnet. Now, according to Britannica.com, the original uncut Cullinan diamond was then purchased by the local Transvaal government and was presented in 1907 to the reigning British monarch, King Edward VII. The 1907 purchase was made for 150,000 pounds, CullinanDiamond.com reported. Now, in Helm's biography of Cullinan, he wrote that the original uncut diamond was sent to London in April 1905 and was, quote, officially presented to King Edward VII on November 9th, 1907. In 1908, Ashers of Amsterdam cut and polished the diamond into 9 large stones and about 100 smaller stones. All of the stones are now part of British regalia, according to Britannica.com. So the 9 large stones and approximately 100 smaller stones are all now part of British regalia, according to Britannica.com. Now, the Great Star of Africa was the largest stone cut from the Cullinan diamond at 530.2 carats. It is the largest clear-cut diamond in the world. According to historical records, it is also known as Cullinan 1 First of Africa, or Cullinan 1, or it's known as First of Africa, or simply just Star of Africa, First Star of Africa, or simply just Star of Africa. It's unclear when each of these names originated. Now, it's true that Queen Elizabeth II owned the Great Star of Africa. The diamond part of the British crown jewels is currently part of the sovereign's scepter, also sometimes referred to as the emperor. It also sometimes referred to as the imperial scepter or royal scepter. Okay, so the diamond part of the British crown jewels is currently part of the royal scepter. And here is a picture here. Now, this photograph shows the Great Star of Africa in the scepter, and other crown jewels was captured around the coronation of Elizabeth II in June 1953. Okay, so we see it here in the scepter. Now, the 317.4 carat Lesser Star of Africa, also known as Cullinan II, was also cut from the Cullinan diamond and is part of the British-owned imperial state crown. A Google search produced varying estimates for the value of the Great Star of Africa, such as $400 million and $2 billion. Its approximate worth is unclear. However, yes, the largest diamond of its kind in the world is worth a lot of money, to say the least. So we get to the question of, was the diamond stolen? Was the diamond stolen? Now, as for the accusation that the Great Star of Africa was stolen, this rumor needs some context. As previously mentioned, historical records indicate that the Transvaal government in South Africa purchased the original diamond and then presented it to the British monarchy. An article printed in 1995 by the Birmingham Post, summarized the controversy and included a statement from Buckingham Palace. Give back Great Star of Africa, says townships. Okay, now black township leaders in South Africa yesterday called on the Queen to give back the priceless Great Star of Africa diamond, which is set in the crown jewels royal scepter. The Azanian People's Organization, AZAPO, claims the diamond was stolen from the treasures of Azanian soil in South Africa. AZAPO spokesman Zathuli Nawi, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, said, quote, "She, the Queen, must be reminded that the diamond belongs to Black people of this country and to them alone. She, the Queen, must be reminded that the diamond belongs to the Black people of this country and them alone." The Great Star of Africa was bought by the Transvaal Republic from the premier mine and presented to King Edward VII as a gift in 1907. Said a Buckingham Palace spokeswoman. Now, it's true that the jewels originated in African soil, just as the organization claimed. Okay, so that was the article that they were referencing, an article printed in 1995. That's an excerpt of that article. Okay, now they go on to say It's true that the jewels originated in African soil, just as the organization had claimed. Whether or not all of the details surrounding the purported purchase and transfer of the jewels constituted a theft would appear to be matter of opinion. The legend of the jewels delivery. Now, how did the jewels safely make the voyage from South Africa all the way to Europe? According to the Associated Press, there's a legend that it was supposedly simply sent just in the mail. Okay. Then they have some information there dealing with that. And then it goes on to say, in some, it's true that the Queen owned the diamond known as the Great State of Africa. As for the controversy over whether or not it was stolen from South Africa, as we mentioned, that matter is perhaps a bit more complicated. The story will be updated with any further data of developments that may help inform readers about the subject. Okay, and then they list their sources here. So you can go through and read all of their sources. If you have additional sources, you can contact Snopes.com so they can update their information as well. Okay, but those diamonds did come from South Africa. There's also diamonds from India as well. They did come from there as well. So the original post said, okay, there was okay, owns and it said it was stolen from South Africa. It was worth it, but they said that it was I think they said it was purchased, but at a time when South Africa was a colony. Okay, so it'll be interesting if King Charles III makes some statements about this and talks about where this came from. And if he can't talk about, he should be able to talk about it. But if he can't, somebody in Parliament should. Prime Minister should be able to talk about it. Okay, the new Prime Minister should be able to talk about it as well. Okay, now there was a good article from face-to-faceafrica.com, and I saw them post this on their Instagram page. Let me see if we can pull this up. Peace Star of Africa. Face-to-faceafrica.com. Now they had this article in 2019. Okay, 2019 they had this piece. Let me see if we can find this here. A second. How Europeans took. Okay, this one right here, June 3rd, 2019. And they're going to come up with a bunch of ads here, face-to-face.com also. How Europeans, name of this article, how Europeans took the largest diamond from South Africa in 1906. Okay, this is from June 3rd, 2019. Let's look at this quickly here from face-to-faceafrica.com. Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this if you like this broadcast. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube. How Europeans took the world's largest diamond from South Africa in 1906 and made it the British crown jewel. Okay, July 3rd, 2019. This is written by, who wrote this? Amos Fofung, Fofung. Okay. And they show Queen Elizabeth II here with the crown and the royal scepter. All right. So you can check out this article as well. Though most African states have successfully recovered some of their taken valuables from colonial masters, the world's largest diamond, referred to as the Star of Africa, that was taken from South Africa during colonization, might never leave the British crown jewel collection. Okay, so read this piece also. Good article from face-to-faceafrica.com. This one right here from CNN, and more articles and stories are being done in mainstream media now after that initial like 24 hours or so, dealing with colonialism, Great Britain and colonialism and slavery and things like this. And this needs to happen. There need to be documentaries that come out. The real history needs to come out. In this way, help with the push for reparations. Cloud of Colonialism hangs over Queen Elizabeth's legacy in Africa. This came out Saturday, September 10th, 2022. Now, here is a picture. This is Queen Elizabeth. She's in Kenya. I think she's in Kenya here. This picture here, okay, with the African troops in Kenya. Okay, so it talks about the death of Elizabeth II has prompted an outpouring of reflection and reaction, but not all was grief. Some young Africans instead are sharing images and stories of their own elders who endured a brutal period of British colonial history during the Queen's long reign. This one here, I cannot mourn. One wrote on Twitter, posting an image of what she said was her grandmother's movement pass, a colonial document which prevented free travel for Kenyans under British rule in the East African country of Kenya. Another wrote that her grandmother used to narrate to us how they were beaten and how their husbands were taken away from them and left to look after the kids during colonial times. May we never forget them. They are our heroes, she added. Now, their refusal to mourn highlights the complexity of the legacy of the Queen, who, despite widespread popularity, was also seen as a symbol of oppression, in parts of the world where the British Empire once extended. Now this, so right here, yeah, Queen Elizabeth II inspects men of the newly named Queen's own Nigeria Regiment. Yeah, this is Nigeria Regiment, Royal West African Frontier Force at Kaduna Airport, Nigeria, during her Commonwealth tour on February 2nd, 1956. That's what this is depicting. This is in Nigeria. Now, Kenya, which had been under British rule since 1895, was named officially as a colony in 1920 and remained that way until it won independence in 1963. Among the worst atrocities under British rule occurred during the Mau Mau uprising, or the Mau Mau rebellion, which started in 1952, the year Queen Elizabeth II took the throne. The colonial administration at the time carried out extreme acts of torture, including castration and sexual assault in detainment camps, where as many as 150,000 Kenyans were held. Elderly Kenyans who sued for compensation in 2011 were ultimately awarded 19.9 million British pounds by a British court to split between the more than 5,000 claimants. So yeah, it was about I think it was about 5,300 claimants in that lawsuit. The UK Foreign Secretary at the time, William Hague, Hague, said the British government recognizes that Kenyans were subject to torture and other forms of ill treatment at the hands of the colonial administration. The British government sincerely regrets that these abuses took place and that they marred Kenya's progress towards independence. If you had not have colonized them, they wouldn't have to declare independence. Now, Africa's memory of the Queen cannot be separated from that colonial past. Professor of Communication Farouk Pierogi at Kennesaw State University told CNN, the Queen's legacy started in colonialism and is still wrapped in it. The Queen's legacy started in colonialism and is still wrapped in it. It used to be said the sun did not set over the British Empire. No amount of compassion or sympathy that her death has generated can wipe that away, he told CNN. Okay, so check out the rest of this article here. It's a really good article. Now, here she is with Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. Okay, Queen Elizabeth II on her way to the Kumasi Durbar with Kwame Nkrumah, president of Ghana, during her tour of Ghana, November 1961. They also show her dancing with Kwame Nkrumah as well. Where is this? Page 6, last page. Okay, here this. Where is this? Nairobi, Kenya, 1952. Okay, right here. Yeah, she's dancing with Kwame Nkrumah. Was that 61? Yeah, Queen Elizabeth II dances with President Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana during her visit to Accra, Ghana in 1961. All right. So check out this article also, and you're going to see more like Cloud of Colonialism. What's the name of this? Cloud of Colonialism hangs over Queen Elizabeth's legacy in Africa. All right. I want to just go over just a few brief things that we cover in the 8-week online class that just started up Saturday. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Trans Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And our next class is scheduled to normally be on Thursdays. Since I was ended up doing a broadcast last Thursday because Queen Elizabeth II passed away, we didn't have class last Thursday. We did it on Saturday, September 10th. Okay, so next class is going to be Thursday, September 15th. It's going to be Thursday, September 15th is going to be class number 2. Now, if you don't have to be in class, you don't have to be present in class. I don't take attendance, anything like that. We do all the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, and you can go and watch them anytime. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire class. Okay, but here's some of the here's things that we deal with in the course, and also I have new information that I've incorporated dealing with Great Britain and slavery. And also Queen Elizabeth II. We actually dealt with some of that information in class number 1. But so here's some of the things that we deal with in the class. First of all, we can't start studying our history in slavery, even when we study the transatlantic slave trade, which is important to study. We can't start studying in 1619 or in the 1440s when the Portuguese get involved. We have to understand the history chronologically and deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who entered the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, in 711 AD. This course not only deals with the transatlantic slave trade, but thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay. We know that August 20th, 1619 marked the 400th year anniversary. August 20th, 2019, I should say, marked the 400th year anniversary of those 20 and odd Africans who came into Point Comfort on the White Lion pirate ship, August 20th, 2019. Okay. In what will later be called the colony of Virginia, That year, now the year 2019, that 400th year anniversary, was known as the year of return, as many African Americans are reconnecting to Africa and traveling to Ghana and other West African countries when we discuss the transatlantic slave trade, we have to first understand that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America, and have been in the land we call the United States of America at least 51,700 years. And I referenced Dr. David Imhotep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, as well. And he's a friend of mine. I've interviewed him